Hello. Before we continue this video, I'd like you to consider the following things. This video tutorial assumes you already have my Raven Team Leader hood templates, which are available in the first link in the description. Secondly, make sure you watch through the entire video series first before making your hood. This way you have a general idea on what the construction process will be, and also so you can plan in advance. This is because I offer multiple ways to make the hood, and so you can watch it now, determine what you're going to do, and then make your hood based off of that. Instead of, building the hood as you're watching the video for the first time, because then you realize, oh, I could have done that instead, and that would have saved me some time. So yeah, make sure you watch the video first, and that you already have my templates, which like I said, are in the first link in the description. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed the video. Is it the fun time? I think it's the fun time. Hello and welcome to this video tutorial on how to make a Raven Team Leader hood for cosplay purposes. Now this video is mainly going over the final steps to actually finish the hood. The previous two videos went over how to resize the hood and how to actually make the hood. Now obviously this video assumes you've already constructed the hood. If you haven't, please watch the first and second videos of the series. Before we start with covering the hood, let's make the faceplate. We'll be using EVA foam for the face. It's sturdy, bendy, and heavy enough to counterbalance the hood. I suggest either grabbing HD foam or Wet the Foam, as both are high density cosplay foams. For this video, I'll be using the 10mm HD foam that I got at Blick. For the actual face, we'll be using a mesh cover, with the foam being used as a faceplate to hold it in place. Now there are two types of mesh which you can use, fabric mesh or solid mesh. Fabric mesh is easier to obtain, but with the hood this large, the fabric might fold in weird ways and allow others to see your face more easily. I recommend doubling up on the fabric mesh here. Solid mesh is much more harder to obtain, but it's sturdier and hides your face better. The only problem is that it comes in smaller sizes. We want to have large solid mesh, but that might be harder to obtain as stated earlier. Now, if you're using fabric mesh, the faceplate will need to be 6 to 10 millimeters thick, whereas if you're using solid mesh, it will need to be 4 to 6 millimeters thick. Let's go back to the face template we made in the last video. We will be making it smaller to make the final face a better fit within the hood. If you're using fabric mesh, measure 2 millimeters inward from the edges, and then connect the lines. If you're using solid mesh, you only need to measure 1 millimeter inwards. Now you can cut the template along the inside edges. Now this might be a bit awkward, but place the template inside your hood and put on the hood. And carefully mark out where your eyes land onto the template. But make sure you don't accidentally poke them out by accident. Now remove the hood and the template. Now obviously the foam that we're using is completely solid and we won't be able to see through. And cutting out eye holes just big enough for your eyes will limit our visibility. And so we'll be cutting out large panels on the faceplate in order to increase our visibility, which means that we also need to draw our structure pieces onto the template. I recommend either using this structure or this structure shown here. Both give ample support to the faceplate to maintain its shape and enough surface area to glue the mesh onto. What I recommend is drawing a center line onto your mesh and then using a ruler to measure out the distance. The support bridges should be between 3/8 of an inch wide to 5/8 of an inch wide, or between 1 and 1.5 centimeters wide. Now when you're making your support bridges, make sure you include a bridge above your eyes. This way the top section of the faceplate is supported, and so that you don't accidentally block half of your vision. With the support pieces drawn into your template, now add a 1 centimeter border around the entire hood. With the support bridges now drawn, carefully transfer your template onto your foam. Make sure you only draw on the outer edges. Afterwards, either manually transfer your support bridges or use a pin to mark where to make the lines, piercing the pin through the template and the foam. You could also cut out the inner panels from the template, but this will leave you with a flimsy template, which could tear easily. Now with all the bridges drawn onto your faceplate, cut the faceplate from your foam, starting with the outside edges and then the inner panels. Now when cutting into foam, make sure that you have a sharp blade and to sharpen it often. If you don't, your cuts will not be as effective. Now with your faceplate finished, choose a side to be the front of the face. In this case, I'm using the side that is bowing outward rather than inward. I like my nose to be unbothered while wearing the hood. Now paint your faceplate black. You only need to paint the front face and the inner cut edges of the support pieces. This step is made significantly easier if you're using black EVA foam. Now place the faceplate inside your hood and put it on. Now you know how much of the outside world you can see through your hood. Now remove the faceplate. It's time to apply the mesh. If you are using fabric mesh, cut the fabric roughly 1 inch larger than the faceplate. Then use a hot glue gun and a scrap piece of foam to glue the mesh onto the outer edges of the faceplate. Then glue the mesh onto the front face of the faceplate, but only on the 1 centimeter border area. You do not want the mesh holes to be big enough to see through the hood normally, so try to find a mesh with small holes. You could also double layer on mesh if needed. If you're using solid mesh, make sure the mesh sheet is larger than the faceplate, as you want it to be one singular piece. Use the paper template to cut out the mesh to size. If you can't find solid mesh large enough, you can use multiple pieces. Just make sure they have overlap in the middle. Once you cut out the mesh, place the mesh and the faceplate inside the hood. The faceplate should press against the mesh and the brim. Do not glue the solid mesh to the faceplate. Now it's time for the face stickers. Print out the eyes template from the PDF folder, making sure that you use the correct paper size when selecting the template. Also make sure you print with the same scale you use when printing out the main template. There are 2 parts for each mouth and eye, the foam layer and the mesh layer. The foam layer is the outer section of the feature, the purple highlight area, and the mesh layer is the white section of the feature, the actual eye area. Originally, I had it so you could only see through the eye section, and thus the eyes needed to be made from mesh. This also meant that if I wanted to change the expression, I would need to make a new faceplate. Yeah, no, let's make stickers this time. To choose your desired eye and mouth shapes, you can use the face folder to see all the possible face combinations. Okay, not every combination, just the ones that appears in game. Cut out your desired eye template. Make sure you only cut on the outer edge. Flip the template over and trace it onto either pink or magenta craft foam. You know, the thin 2mm sheets of EVA foam you get in packs at like Walmart, Target. Yeah, those. Create a mark on the inside section of the eyes. Now, carefully cut out the inner section of the foam layer template. Place the outer section back onto the foam, and then carefully place the inner section in the hole. Remove the outer section, and now trace the inner template. Now carefully cut out the eyes from the foam. Make sure not to stretch nor tear the foam. Now cut out the mesh template that goes along with the eye. You can use any thin white material for the eyes. In this case, I am using cardstock. Trace and cut out the eyepiece. Now place the eyepiece on the marked section of the foam piece and carefully glue the eyepiece to the foam. Repeat this process with the remaining eye and mouth pieces. For the mouthpieces, you will need to flip the mouthpiece templates on the edge with the triangles while tracing in order to trace the entire mouth. Alternatively, you can also print out the color sheets to make the face features. However, this will require that you already have a laminator. They are somewhat inexpensive, but do not buy a laminator just for this project. You're already spending enough money on supplies as is. You do not need to drop another $30+ on an office tool you're only going to use once. Use this process if you have a laminator already, have access to a laminator, or if you have a real need to buy one. Alternatively, you can also buy the self-adhesing laminated sheets. I have not tried using them, so I don't know how well they would work in this case. Firstly, cut out the foam layer of the template of the eyes you want. Do not cut out the inside section. Place a sheet of paper with the hole on top of the color sheet and line up the hole with the eye print. The magenta section is larger by design. Now place out the template on the hole without moving any of the sheets. Now carefully hold down the cut template and remove the top sheet template. Without moving your eyepiece template, carefully tape it down onto the color sheet. Now cut out the color sheet, using the template edges as a guide to where to cut. You might also need to move where the tape is in order to complete your cuts. I recommend using masking tape as it will peel off easily from your printed sheet. The reason why we're going through this process is so that we don't leave any pencil or pen marks on the feature. If you have access to a circuit cutter, you can also use that. Unfortunately, I do not have a circuit cutter, which means that you will need to make your own cut files if that's the case. Now with your eye cut out, repeat the step with the other eye you are going to use. For the mouth, there is a separate cut template that has the full mouth. Use this instead of the foam layer templates. Now with the eyes and mouthpieces cut out, place the stickers inside the lamination packet and then laminate them. Be careful when laminating your sheets. The laminator is extremely hot, and if you orientate it wrong, you can end up ruining an entire sheet. Now that you've laminated your features, you can now cut around them on the sheet. Make sure you also round any sharp edges. Do not cut directly on the feature itself. Make sure there's enough space between your cut and the paper edge. While it might seem simpler to just laminate the entire sheet and then use the templates to cut it, do not do this, as when you cut it, this might cause the lamination to peel away faster. It also makes handling the sharp edges more cumbersome as you can't round them over. Now that you have your features done, we all have to decide how to attach these features to your mesh. You could do it permanently, where you just glue it directly to the mesh. Semi-permanently, where you glue magnets to your features and onto the mesh, or temporarily, where you only glue magnets to your features. Each has their advantages and disadvantages. Permanently attaching the features to the mesh means that it is the most secure to the faceplate. That means you can't change the expression unless you make a new faceplate or swap out the mesh in some cases. And if you mess up while gluing the feature, you might get derpy eyes and be shadowed by a Rainbow Dash cosplayer at every con you attend. Semi-permanently attaching the features means that you can swap expressions on the fly and have them stay in the same place. However, that means the right eye magnet on the hood has to be quite large to accommodate for the drastic change in placement. Temporarily attaching the feature should be the best, as you can choose where the features are on the hood and you don't need to glue any magnets to the mesh. However, the inner magnet is now only held by magnetism and could fall off and inconvenience you. The features could also drift while wearing the hood. For this video, I will be semi-permanently attaching the features to the face. I will be using the RTL Faces Guide to determine the placement of the features. For the left eye, I will be using the scar ends to place the magnets. For the mouth, the magnet will be on the nose area. With all the magnets now glued into place, go and buy a pillowcase. It needs to be 20 inches wide and 30 inches long. We will be using this as the fabric for a hood. Now if you resize my hood template, either use a smaller or larger pillowcase and just deal with the excess. However, you could also make your own pillowcase that fits your hood perfectly. To do this, use a measuring tape to measure the perimeter of the hood, making sure that the tape is tight across the hood. Use masking tape to hold the measuring tape down to the hood if needed. Now record the perimeter in centimeters, and then add 3 centimeters to that length. We are adding 2 centimeters for seam allowance and 1 for fit allowance. Now go and buy your fabric. Make sure it is at least a yard long and wider than your perimeter measurement. And now cut out a rectangle that is as wide as your adjusted perimeter measurement. This fabric should also be 79 centimeters tall. This gives you 1 centimeter of seam allowance at the top and 2 centimeters of hem allowance at the bottom. Now hem the bottom edge first. Once you've done that, fold the fabric in half, making sure the hem section is on the outside. Measure and mark out 19.5 inches or 49.5 centimeters on the long cut edge, starting on the hem edge. Now pin the fabric together and start sewing on the top edge. When you're done, start sewing on the side edge. making sure that you stop on that 19.5-inch mark. Hem the remaining open edges. You do not want to sew this section together. With that, your hood cover is now done. Now, if you decide to buy a pillowcase, do not try to fit the cover over the hood quite yet. It will be a tight fit all the way through and it will not reach the end of the case. Along the seam edge, cut 19.5 inches into the cover, or 49.5 centimeters. You might have to sew some sections of the pillowcase again, and you should definitely use fray check to keep the fabric from fraying apart. I also recommend you follow this video tutorial to secure the cut fabric. Now you can put the hood into the cover. The cut section should be in the back of the hood. The seam line should directly line up with the back pyramid's tip. If your pillowcase has a front seam, like mine does, try to align it to the center of the face. Make sure the front cover of the hood does not come all the way down. We want a point to stick out and resemble the sharp tip of the in-game model. You can add a bit of material to keep the point straight up, or you can leave it like a flap. Now it's time to shape the cover and permanently attach it to the hood. Firstly, cut into the cover to open up the face hole. Make the cuts as close to the corners of the brim as possible, and glue the fabric to the front and side faces of the brim. Then place glue on the inside face of the hood behind the brim and press the fabric into the glue. Now trim the excess fabric. Now on the bottom back corner of the forehead panels, sew a small square into the fabric and through the material. This is to secure the fabric to the hood in this section.
Alright, so to explain how you're going to sew through this material, first of all, you're not going to use a regular thread and a needle, because what you're going to find is that you're going to be sewing through the hinges, and those are basically just cardstock, so that's really thicker. So I recommend getting thicker embroidery needles, so it makes it easier. So what you're going to do is that you're going to start from the back side of the piece, and you're just going to stick it in. You're going to stick your needle about not at the corner, but just off the corner, so that way you can go back and make a square. So you're going to pull your fabric all the way in, but not all the way. You want to stop where your knot is at the end of your thread, and then you're going to sew back again. This section has glue, so I'm actually just not going to. I'm going to just do this for demonstration purposes because I don't want to go through all that glue. So as you can see right now, the thread is not all the way in, so you're going to stick your needle through the thread and then pull it in all the way. That way the thread is looped into itself and it won't go through the hole you made. And so now you just basically do what's called a back stitch. You go a bit forward, and so through the fabric side, you pull all the way through, and then you go back to where you started your stitch. You push it through, and then you continue this until you make your sewn square, or in this case a rhombus looking shape, or wherever the right shape is called.
Make sure that when you insert the needle, the holes are far enough apart so that when you tighten the thread, you don't accidentally cut through the material, but not too far as to not be able to secure the material properly. Once you're done sewing one corner, repeat this process on the other side of the hood. Now grab the other corner of the cover and bring it as close to the top of the hood as possible. A lot of fabric will be tucked underneath itself. Do not pull the fabric though. When you position the back flap where you want it, pin it into place and sew the fabric to the material. On the top of this flap and the hood, sew the fabric together, but do not sew it to the hood material. Now glue the cover to the chin panel of the hood, as well as that section of the neck brace. Then glue the fabric to the cheek panel and the neck brace. Only glue the area where the neck hole stops curving. After that, pin the fabric along the cheek forehead edge. Make sure the fabric on the outside flap lays flat. Sew the corner of the cheek panel. It should be right under your first sewn corner, and repeat this on the other side. Now bring the fabric to the back corner of the neck panel on the top of the pyramid and sew it into the hood. As you can see, there's quite a bit of excess fabric on the bottom edge. You can leave it as is, or you can fold and sew it onto itself to make it neater. You could also add a zipper if you'd like. With that, you have successfully finished the cover. Now it's time for the final thing we need to finish for the hood. The ears! In the neck hole templates, I've also placed the ear templates. You can now cut them out from the neck hole templates. With the inner ear template, trace it onto 10mm EVA foam. You can use other thicknesses of foam, just make sure to stack them on top of each other, and that the final thickness is close to 1 centimeter. You will make 2 inner ears out of foam. Using the same material that you made your hood with, use the outer ear template to make 4 outer ear pieces. Now make a sandwich with 2 of the outer ear pieces and 1 of the inner ear pieces. Measure how thick the sandwich is. Now with single layer corrugated cardboard, cut out a long strip that is as wide as your sandwich. Now measure the thickness of the outer ear piece and draw a line along the long edge of the strip, making a section as wide as that material. Repeat this on the other side. Now listen carefully. We are going to score the edges of the cardboard, but we will be removing the top and middle layers of cardboard. Do this slowly and carefully. You should be left with a single layer of cardboard on the edges and a normal section of cardboard in the middle. We're going to glue the edges directly onto our building material and create a curved wall around the ear. We will only be gluing it to the front face of the ear for now though. Because of the 2 sharp inner corners of the ear, place the end of the strip inside one corner and start gluing from there, cutting the cardboard when you reach the base of the ear. Repeat this on the other side of the ear. For the middle section, bend the strip but do not place it in the corner. You're going to need to mark out where the longer strip meets the other corner. Once you've marked it, you can cut it out and glue it into place. If it's too long, make your necessary adjustment. If it's too short, you will need to make another piece. With the strips glued to your front outer ear, now glue in your inner ear piece to the inside area. Then glue a second outer ear piece inside as well. Make sure you also put glue on the edges of the outer ear piece so that it is glued to the ear wall as well. Either with craft felt or craft foam, cut out a strip as wide as the ear again and glue it directly to the ear walls. Because felt and foam isn't as rigid as cardboard, you can poke the material into the corners while gluing. With the ear wall now colored, place the ear onto your material and trace out the ear. Cut out the trace section and glue it to your ear's face. Repeat this on the other side. We now have one completed ear. Okay, so obviously your Raven Team Leader has different colored ears. With the purple variant, the outside of the ear is like darker than the inside, and it's going to be the same thing here. Because I'm doing the pink variant, I'm going to put a blue circle made of cardstock on the inside on the front layer. So make sure you put your front face decorations first before you put on the back layer, so you know which is which. Which honestly, it doesn't quite matter, but you don't want to make 2 left ears, or I guess right ears. It'll look weird from people looking in the back, so make sure you put your decorations on the front faces first and then complete the back sides. Once you finish the second, we now have a complete set. Now grab a scrap piece of paper and cut out a rectangle that's 1.5 inches wide and 3 3/4 inches long, or 3.8 centimeters wide and 9.5 centimeters long. This will be our sewing template, as if we directly glued the ear to the hood, it will cause it to droop. So we need to attach the area around the ear to the hood body. First, lay the hood on the left cheek panel and place the ear against the hood, using the face guide to help with placement. Once you've placed the ear where you want, insert the sewing guide under the ear with equal spacing on each side. You can now remove the ear, we just need the guide for now. Measure the distance between the guide and the cheek edge and record it. Carefully move the guide so it sits 1 3/4 inches or 4.5 centimeters away from the face of the hood. Now, using 4 sewing pins, poke 4 holes at the corners of the guide through the material. Carefully remove the guide and move the head to the other cheek panel. Place the guide in the same place as the other side, using the measurements you recorded to place it. It should sit the same distance away from the face edge as on the other side. Use 4 more sewing pins to poke holes into the material with the guide's corners. Now on the inside of the hood, use a large sheet of scrap paper as a straight edge and draw a rectangle inside the forehead panel using the 4 pins as the corners of the rectangle. With the rectangle drawn, you can now remove the pins. Now use this rectangle as a guide to sew the head onto the fabric on the other side. Like before, I recommend using the back stitch. When you are done sewing, push 1 sewing pin into the middle of the rectangle, like this. Place the ear in the rectangle on the fabric side and push the pin through. Now push 2 more pins through the material and into the foam center of the ear. Make sure they don't poke out of the ear and that you only push them in through once. Remove the ear from the pins, then push the pins mostly out of their holes, but not all the way. On the ear, you should see 3 pinholes. Mark them and apply glue on the inner foam section of the ear, making sure to avoid applying glue onto the pinholes. Before the glue dries, align the ear to the pins using the pinholes in the ear as a guide and press down on the hood. Then push the pins in. Using the sewing guide from earlier, cut out a rectangle from the same material that we used to make the ear colors. Then, apply a vigorous amount of glue to one surface and press it against the pins on the inside of the hood. This is so that we secure the pins to the hood itself and to the ears. Repeat this on the other side of the hood. Finally, place the faceplate inside the hood. And now, the Raven Team Leader hood is now finally complete. Thank you for watching this video series, and I hope you enjoy cosplaying as Raven Team Leader. You can find the suit patterns and other armor pieces for this cosplay on my Etsy and Payhip stores. I have links for them in the description of this video. Now, go out and be silly!